So before I start, I want to share with you a dilemma. Imagine a plane, and that plane's about to crash. And there are 4 passengers on that plane, but only 3 parachutes. And in all that mayhem, one of the passengers grabs a chute, stands up and says, "I'm Bill Gates. I'm the 2nd richest man in the world, and there's so much that I can do through my foundation for humanity." And he grabs the chute and he jumps out. And the second person stands up, grabs a pack, and he says, "I'm Donald Trump. I'm the smartest, best president of the United States ever. America needs me." And with that, he jumps. So that leaves 2 people on the plane. And the third person stands up and he bends down because the 4th person is a 10-year-old boy. And he picks up the parachute and he says, "I'm Pope Francis. I'm the head of the Catholic Church, and my flock needs me. But I am old and you are young, so please take this parachute." And at that, the little boy looks up and says, "That's okay, Your Holiness. The smartest American president ever just jumped out with my rucksack." And you know what? Sometimes life can feel a little bit like you've just jumped out of a plane, holding onto a rucksack. No parachute, no purpose. Well, there's a very famous writer called Richard Bowles who's written a book called "What Color is Your Parachute?" And in that book, he tries to explain a little bit more about what it means to have a purpose. And he says, keep busy being something as opposed to just doing something. So you have a choice. You can choose to jump out of that plane into the great unknown and just hope you're going to land somewhere. Or you can make a plan, have a plan. To be rather than just to do. And to kind of steer your parachute and use that as your guide, your purpose. Now, it's a pretty scary world out there. Everything from climate change to migration to terrorism to economic uncertainty. And the US Army actually has coined a phrase that they use to describe the world that you're just kind of jumping into. And they call it a VUCA world. They're volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So it can feel like we do live in this VUCA world. We live on a planet with 7.5 billion people. And that's actually double the number of people than on the year that I was born, which I can give it away, it's 1966. So we've doubled the world's population in just over 50 years. And in the next 10, we're going to add another billion people to the planet. And when we do, those 8.5 billion people are going to need to use 50% more energy, 40% more water, and 35% more food to sustain themselves. Now, you'd think we'd be managing the world's finite resources a little bit better then, because after all, we've only got one planet. But scientists predict that by 2050, 37% of the world's plant and animal life will be extinct. And that's 10,000 times faster than the natural rate of extinction. And Credit Suisse Research have done a report. Last November, they published a report that says that the world's richest 1% own the equivalent of 50% of the world's household wealth. So actually, the U could also stand for unfair. Now, when I worked at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we often described ourselves as impatient optimists. What that meant is that we were optimistic that we had it within our grasp, that humanity had the potential to solve some of these really complex challenges. But we were impatient because we felt that we just weren't moving fast enough, that we weren't accelerating the pace of change. Now, I am an optimist, and I really, really do believe in the power both of a single individual as much as the collective whole to make a difference, to be the change. Now, there's someone called Hans Rosling, and he's my favorite Swedish statistician. There aren't too many Swedish statisticians. He's an author, and he's also a fantastic TED speaker. And he says that the world is getting better. It's just not good enough. We know, actually though, that the data, all the empirical data, shows that we are making progress. We are healthier, wealthier, better educated, and have more income than any of our ancestors have ever had. If you look at extreme poverty, and extreme poverty is defined as being earning less than $2 a day. Well, now, less than 10% of the world lives on less than $2 a day, and that's the lowest it's ever been in history. 9 out of 10 children in the world go to school every day. And we predict that within one generation, there will be no one on the planet that is illiterate. So we do have it within our grasp to change this VUCA world. But it takes some courage. It takes the courage to have both empathy and responsibility, and to do that in a way that our predecessors haven't done. So if you look at that, that's empathy, E for empathy, R for responsibility. And when you add that to VUCA, you spell Veruca. That's not really a brilliant acronym, I'll give you that. It's not even spelt right. But actually, it's kind of catchy, and it spreads a bit like a Veruca. It just is something that each one of us has to understand within ourselves. I first came to have an appreciation or an understanding of what it means to be more empathetic and that sense of responsibility very early on in my life. I was actually an illegal immigrant to the United Kingdom. I was born on the island of Madeira. It's a beautiful island off the coast of Morocco, and it was all about sun and sea and sand. And it felt safe and secure. And when I was 8 years of age, my mother left my father, decided that she wanted to come to the United Kingdom with myself and my sister. But we needed my father's permission, and we weren't allowed his permission. So we literally had to hide in the toilets of Madeira Airport. And I remember standing on the toilet seat so no one could see my feet until we got on a plane and we were able to board the plane and leave. And when my mum left, she left with £10 in her handbag, and that was it. So when we came to England, I spoke no English. I was 8 years of age, I spoke no English. And I was thrust into school. And I struggled. But within about a year, I'd learnt how to speak English. And 10 years later, I found myself at university. And it taught me something very important, which is that when you're confronting some of the biggest challenges in life, you can be the agent of change. You have it within yourself to be that change agent. And I decided I wanted to use my voice to make that world a better place. You can do the same. What you have to do, however, and I'm going to take you back to that parachute analogy that I was using earlier, is you have to do a few things. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it can take, how you can go about finding your purpose. Well, the first thing is, if you imagine you're back on that plane and you're holding onto that parachute for dear life. By the way, I don't know if anyone's ever done it. I did a charity parachute jump, and it is one of the scariest things ever, dangling out the edge of a plane, holding onto the parachute, and 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, hoping it's going to open. But when you do that, you have a drop zone. You know where you're going to land. You have a sense of direction. And that's really the first thing that you have to see and seek out, is define what it is that you ultimately want to do. Well, for some people, that's a vocation. It can be being a doctor or a teacher or an aid worker, a charity aid worker. But also, for many of us, finding our purpose is really about living that moment, understanding that moment when you feel that you have that tremendous positive energy, a great sense of pride, a great sense of achievement, of accomplishment. Those moments where you go and do something that you feel makes the day just fantastic, living that moment. But if you can capture that, and it takes some time, and it is a real investment of time, then you can actually understand what it means to live with purpose. The second thing you have to do is get yourself a compass. What do I mean by a compass? Well, my compass has 6 points on it. My 6 points are people that I have reached out to that are important to me and who can act as my guide. Well, for some of you, that might be a teacher or a coach or a family friend. But I'd really encourage you not to make it someone in your immediate family, because they don't necessarily always look at things in the most objective way. They always have a sense of what's most important for you. But what you really want is a source of objective advice. And throughout my career, I've gone back to my 6 guides, my mentors, and I've consistently asked questions to them, posed questions. Am I doing the right thing? Should I change course? Is there something else that I should be doing that I'm not? And I've sought out that guidance and that advice. And I've been very, very deliberate about it. And what those people have also done for me is the third thing. They've helped me to stay the course. Because this is hard. If you choose to live a life like this, where you make the very clear decision about what you want to do and the direction of travel in which you want to go, it takes a degree of self-belief, of resilience, and of faith. And it can be really easy to fall back into that sense of cynicism or a sense of hopelessness. So you need those people to help you stay the course. And that leads me to the other thing that's really important. Each one of you has it within you to disrupt the status quo. I chose to do that through the world of work. I genuinely believe that when I work in a business, when I'm working in a company, part of my role is to be the change agent within that company. Because I believe that business can be done in a way that is more sustainable and can actually make a positive contribution to society and to people's lives. So when you go for a job interview and you're looking to interview either with a company or any organization really, do your research. Ask the questions. Ask questions about things that really matter to you. Because you know what? More and more companies have to demonstrate and have to live that E and that R. They have to show that they are more responsible and more empathetic. It matters. And if you get a job, when you join a company or an organization, don't leave your principles, the things that matter to you at home. Within the company, ask questions. Why are we doing this? Why are we not doing more about plastics in the oceans? Why aren't we doing more about food waste? Get other people around you to do the same. Write to your CEO. Ask him what he's doing about it. And by the way, in 2018, it's still a him, and that's something else we have to change as well. So you have a voice, and you should use it. And you know what? One person's voice, taken together, can change things. You have power. Just think about what happened recently in DC. Just look at what happened when a group of 16-year-old kids decided to use their voice to speak out about gun control. Or the Me Too campaign that's sweeping Western Europe. This generation has more impact, more ability to influence than any other generation in history. Because you have the power of both technology and of social media. You can speak out, you can speak to others, you can create a movement for change. And that is a uniquely powerful thing you can do. The other thing that's important to understand is, in your everyday actions, it doesn't have to be these things on a grand scale. You can make a difference just in making some choices and making decisions about the way that you want to live your life and the impact that you want to have. Everything you do can make a difference. Everything from what you buy to what you boycott, what you won't buy. And making people understand why you won't as much as why you do. And it does make a difference. Trust me. I work in a company, when you use your voice as a consumer, we pay attention, we listen, and we will change. So, you can do one thing. Keep that sense of optimism, that sense of self-belief. Embrace this idea of empathy and responsibility. Go out there and help all of us create that Veruca world. So what you have to do is you have to grab that parachute, because actually, unlike the plane, there's plenty of them to go around. And you have to jump out into the world and take the plunge, but with a sense of purpose. Thank you.